Sorry guys, I was distracted by the mountains. Now if you don't know, I served in special warfare, but I broke my neck. Now part of that is there's a little bit of involvement with my vocal cords. I had a recent issue where it impinged very heavily upon my vocal cords, upon the nerves of those, so it's very difficult to talk right now. So hope you guys will bear with me as we power through this and hopefully get this fixed in the future. But that being said, today we're going to be talking about a very cool rifle. So right here we have the KS3. Now you might not be as familiar with the KS3, but you are probably familiar with the KS1. If you're not, it was recently adopted by the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense for their soldiers, for their commandos, and it is an incredible rifle. It went through a huge selection process. Now the KS3 is a shorter variant. It is the 11.5 variant of the KS1. There's a lot that goes into this. This is a Knights Armament rifle. This is a Knights Armament design. We are so excited to be able to show you the KS3 with specific talking points to the KS1. I hope you guys will stay tuned as we talk about this very rare rifle today in use with probably Captain Price. Now guys, we have a little secret for you. If you didn't know, you pay for internet, but you don't pay for this content. In fact, it's kept free through our awesome sponsors. We have to give them all the love. The biggest love to, of course, Primer Arms, our biggest sponsor. They have been with us forever, guys. And for that reason, you should love them. So you should send them an email and say, we love you, because they have the coolest pistol optics made in the USA. They have the coolest compact optics. And whatever you might need for your rifle, guaranteed they have it. Go and give them tons of love and say, you know what? It's getting close to Valentine's Day. Primer Arms, would you be my Valentine? Do you think they'll say yes? And of course, guys, if you're looking to be more American, we have Henry Repeating Arms. Now, here's the thing, guys. In all my time shooting, I'll tell you what, I love a good lever action because it harkens back to a little bit of Americana in the history of America. So no matter how many times I shoot these cool guns, I'm always like, you know what? A lever action with your kids, with your family is just a good time. Go and check them out. And of course, check out henrythumb.com. I can't talk about it here, but it's a big secret. Guys, if you're looking to get better at shooting, can't forget Mantis. Turn your weapon into a dry fire machine. In fact, it's so good that my employees have stolen all of my Mantis products. So they are actually very good and we love them. Don't worry about the people who say they're not good, because you know what? They just make dry firing fun. All Ammunition is sponsored for by AAC. With all that being said, guys, let's power through this. Let's see if my vocal cords are going to work. And let's talk about the KS1 and the KS3. Now, the KS1 is a very cool rifle. We have a 13.7-inch barrel. It's dimpled. That's mostly to meet the weight requirements that were set forth by the United Kingdom with their Ministry of Defense to ensure that they could pass the trials. Now, in addition to that, they went up against all of the greats you can think of, from FN to HK, etc., and Knights Armament won out the KS1. Now, the KS3 is a variant that you'll likely see in use with both the UK and many other countries because it is the 11.5 variant, but we have the same components with both, with the exception that the 11.5 from the KS3 is going to have slightly less velocity compared to the 13.7. But with all that being said, the first thing that we're going to be doing is our on the range portion. We're specifically going to be taking a look at this from a shooter's perspective. I spent 12 years in the military, 9 of those within special operations within the Air Force. So happy to be able to give a lot of my feedback as we go through this. Let's get to the on the range. Afterwards, guys, we'll break this down full autism style as we delve hard into the Knights Armament KS1 and KS3. Let's get on the range. Now, because my voice is kind of not there due to the nerve compression, well, Preston, do a little bit of the talking here. Preston, what are we doing first?
We're going to start off with the bill drill, which is just nice and simple, 6 rounds, 7 yards.
There you have it. So let's go ahead and let's see. This is a good drill to test both repeatability of the gun as well as speed and recoil control. So, okay, it's ready. The KS3.
Shooter ready. Stand by.
Whew. Did I just do 5 or is that 6? That was 5. Let's do one more. That was quick. What was the time on that one?
129.
Oh, it said you got 6. Huh. Okay. Is that one more time?
Shooter ready.
Yeah.
Stand by. 0.97.
Woohoo! There we go. Okay. We got full 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nice clean A-zone. I do also have to point out that is reduced size A-zone. We'll do one more on this guy just because I'm feeling nice and spicy.
Shooter ready.
Yeah.
Stand by.
A little slower on that one. 125.
That was 7 though.
Feels good. That's probably why. Well, that feels pretty good. So, as you can see with the bill drill, the thing that we have to point out here is how smooth the recoil is on the KS3. The gun is gassed very well, and the Knights Armament KS3 and KS1 do use slightly different gas systems from what you typically see on an AR-15. We'll explain that more in the black screen, but understand all of that optimization leads for a very well-gassed gun that falls into that combat gassing range to ensure it can power through dust, grit, mud, carbon, etc., but still allow you to stay on target very easily. Another thing I do have to point out is that the trigger from Knights Armament is their 2-stage trigger, which is quite incredible. They make a very good product. Next thing up, we're going to do transition, and this is the only transition that we approve of on Grand Thumb.
Except for Gene.
Except for Gene. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do 3. So I'm going to do 1 shot per, and we're just going to go across the board right here. I'll start gun up on target. Safety off. Ready. Time.
0.75.
All right, let's do one more.
0.69.
Ooh, oh, nice. All right, let's go. Oh, look at that. So between those two, come here, take a look at that. Between those two drills, same impact. That's kind of cool. We came across right here. That was good. On the first one that I did, I was a little early on my presentation here. I got a Charlie. The second one, I cleaned that up. Transitions feel good. The gun is short on the KS3. That leads to an easy transition between targets. Very easy to do. Last one we'll do is going to be 2 per. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. Nice.
152.
Nice. Feels good. The gun is very easy to drive, and due to the low recoil on it, it really does have a tendency just to drive right back into place. So let me kind of show that here. I'll go on this second target. But it is just super easy. The gun just tends to return to right where it goes every time you're pulling the trigger. This is a combination of the gassing, stance obviously, but the gun really does feel quite good. A lot of people are going to be quick to ask, 416, Knights Armament, KS1, KS3, URGI. Honestly, they're all really, really good, but there's going to be small differences in terms of operation and where they're going to excel at that is going to be the determining factor whether or not you're going to go with KS3 versus something more conventional or something more unconventional like a 416. Talk about that in the black screen. For now, let's go and let's do some far shots and see what we're getting. Okay, so we're going to be shooting at a little bit of long range here. We'll be starting at 350 and then we'll walk out to 550. Shouldn't be much of a problem. A lot of people think that short barrels can't do it, but probably see the 11.5 can. More importantly, the 13.7 from the KS1 is going to have a more extended range, probably more comfortably doing 600 to 700. So let's go and start with our short KFP variant. We're using the correct AMG 1 to 10 from Vortex on the Reptilia mount. Very good optic setup. Let me know when you're on glass.
I'm up.
All right. So making those shots, not too bad at all. Ammo's a little cold. We had a little bit of a short stroking going on. We got it figured out. We're going to walk it out to 550 now. And that was super easy at 350. Right. All right, there we go. So, fun thing about cold ammo is you're always going to run into something. So the shots at 550, no problem at all with the 11.5. The gun is very, very accurate. And more importantly, we haven't noticed any vertical stringing when it comes to the gun heating up. The barrel profile isn't heavy. However, it is definitely of that medium contour and that Knight's contour. And it does an extremely good job of managing heat, especially when you're firing long range. It's exactly what you want from a combat rifle. So we've done a lot of shooting at this point, guys. It's time to go walk into the black screen, break it down full autism style as we delve into this very cool rifle. Hope you guys will stay tuned. So we have done a lot of shooting. Now we're gonna do a lot of talking. Now, this is several days after the original video, guys. Still, my vocal cords are still impinged by inflammation, whether it's permanent or not, whether I'm in RFK mode from now on.
Autism.
We don't really know. But stay tuned, still the same great information. So right here, guys, we have the KS3, which is essentially the KS1 with the exception of the barrel life. Now, going into this, there's a lot of very interesting things. But let's start off on what the KS1, the KS3 is. Essentially, we have an SR16 with a few differences in terms of coating and more specifically, the type of accessories that have been chosen. So let's take a step back and let's look at what the United Kingdom did. So the first thing we have to talk about is Project Hunter. So up to this point, obviously, the United Kingdom has made primarily use of the L85, A2, and A3 as its service rifle. These have both performed quite well. There is an upgrade that was performed by HK that made the weapons fairly well loved within the British Armed Services. Understand that there's always going to be contention about a rifle that a country is using. Now, when they came up with Project Hunter, they wanted a non-bullpup rifle as an alternative individual weapon system. And to be clear, this is not at all the first AR-15 design that the United Kingdom has fielded. Indeed, they have used rifles from Colt Canada quite heavily. One thing that we can think of right off the bat would be, for example, Christian Craghead with his excursion to Nairobi, which if everyone knows him, and he was using a Colt Canada rifle. So it's not at all odd for the United Kingdom to be using a more AR-15-like design. So when Project Hunter was came up with, they wanted a traditional AR-15 design. And to be clear, most of the details about Project Hunter, and specifically the testing and what companies participated in it, are very much so classified. But from the information that we do know, we know that it was Knight's Armament. There were submissions from Sig Sauer, HK, Daniel Defense, all the big players you can think of, most notably Glock with their new AR-15 variant. So these were all, of course, put head to head with the KAC as they all went up against each other. Despite all of this, Knight's Armament came out on top with the KS1. And that is very interesting. If there's anything you know about the United Kingdom and their armed forces, they do take their professionalism, their soldiering, their fieldcraft very seriously. So there's no doubt in my mind that they tested these rifles to the nth degree, which is always cool to see an American-made design going forward. If you're not familiar with the Knights, let's talk about it for a moment. Eugene Stoner is a legend. He obviously designed the M16, the weapon that we know and love. However, there were things that he felt were lacking on the M16 that he felt could be improved upon. Eugene Stoner and others contributed to the rifle that we have today in the SR-15, the SR-16. And although this rifle does look exactly like an AR-15, there are some very notable differences, and there isn't specifically parts compatibility between the two. It's best to think of these as like close cousins. They should never kiss, but they are definitely related in many ways. That is a terrible analogy. I hope that doesn't make it into the video. It probably will. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the KS1, the SR-16. So first thing we need to talk about SR-15, SR-16. What is the difference? These are the typical rifles that are manufactured and that are sent all throughout the world and that are used by many agencies within the United States. These are their typical upgrades to the AR-15 pattern. These are well vetted, well used, have been used in combat, used in multiple operations. The difference between the SR-15 and the SR-16 is going to be that auto capability. The SR-16 being the government model, SR-15 being the civilian model. Differences besides those, virtually nothing. So when you go over to the KS1, KS3, there are a few notable differences that we'll talk about. But more importantly, what I want to bring up is how good the procurement process has been by the United Kingdom. With Project Hunter, we have a very capable rifle that was adopted. And a lot of people are quick to say, we haven't cared about England since 1776. I highly disagree. As a member in the military, when I still served before retiring, I worked extensively with the Royal Commandos, with the Royal Marines, and with the United Kingdom's military forces in general, and I was always highly impressed with the professionalism and their willingness to help us with whatever was happening. It's been said that the United States and the United Kingdom have a special relationship, and I definitely agree with that. Together, there are many things that we can do, and I'm very happy that they picked some really good accessories. Now, Prior to this, it should be mentioned that the United Kingdom was primarily using the Browning High Power as their service handgun. That was recently changed over to the Glock 17. With the adoption of the Glock 17 and now the KS1, you essentially have the Instagram hype, setup. Just kidding. It is kind of true though that they have selected very good, very well-proven technologies. This is in stark contrast to the United States, which has adopted the M17, M18, and the M7, both of which are newer, slightly less proven technologies. Not to say one or the other is incorrect, that's not what I'm trying to assert here, rather to point out that the UK has made some very good steps despite not really being what you consider a gun culture nation. Okay, enough about that. The Knight's Armament KS-1 is a direct impingement rifle. You might call that an internal piston rifle. We're going to stick with DI. It features a 13.7 heavy profile dimpled barrel. Now, it feeds from a standard Snag magazine. If you don't know what that is your basic AR-15 magazine, whether it be metal mags, P-mags, E-mags, whatever is going to work in an AR-15 for the magazine is going to work in the KS-1 or the KS-3. Now, the first thing I kind of want to get out of the way is a lot of people are going to be quick to comment that the KS-3 is clearly not the KS-1. But what we need to talk about is that the KS-3 was developed in conjunction with the KS-1 so that the upper could be directly dropped into the lower from the KS-1. The Knight's Armament buffer and buffer springs are particularly suited to the KS-3, and indeed they were designed together to work together seamlessly. When you have a country that's already adopted the KS-1, it makes sense that for certain activities, they're very likely going to also adopt or use heavily the KS-3. A short upper such as a KS-3 is going to excel in CQB or VBSs, visit, board, search, seizure. Much like how the Marines have adopted the M27, which is a 16.1 inch barreled HK416, but for many Marines, they are using the Recon Weapons Kit, which is a 11-inch model. So very much so in the vein of the KS-1, I believe that the KS-3 will also be used heavily. But we've talked a lot about the setup to this point. The KS-1 is selected. It is going to be used heavily. In fact, most of the time, for right now, you see it mostly with their specialized units. There are going to be many that are delivered. I believe they have a provision for approximately 10,000, but we have a good amount that are delivered already. And from everything that we've seen with the United Kingdom Armed Forces, they seem to be quite happy with what they're getting. So let's go ahead and let's delve into it. We'll primarily be going off the KS-3 because obviously we have a KS-3 here, but any differences in the KS-1 will be noted, and it should be noted as well that I have extensive time on the KS-1 as well at this point with the KS-3, so I believe I can speak quite intelligently on both rifles. So let's get into it. Let's start with the suppressor first off. A lot of questions about the suppressor. I've been lucky that I've been able to speak with certain individuals with insider knowledge on the suppressor, and I want to be very clear. My relationship with Knight's Armament is good. That being said, they're fairly tight-lipped about the KS-1, likely due to NDAs or other classified data that's attached to it, so there wasn't really any collaboration between them. The KS-1 was provided for by Classic Firearms, and in fact, if you go to the super secret website, right below, we can't say anything about it. There's some super secret cool stuff going on there that we can't talk about because it's YouTube, so go check it out. Okay, let's go ahead, let's get into the suppressor first off. So right here we have the MCQ2 suppressor. Now, previously you might have seen a lot of acronyms with the Knight suppressors. They are simplifying the names, which is important. Now, this is a very short suppressor, adds approximately 13.9 ounces to the weight and a little over 2 inches in length. This is a very small suppressor, as you guys are aware. Compare this to a lot of your normal cans that you're seeing, and the question might be, what level of sound suppression are we actually seeing with this? Well, that comes down to what you're actually looking for. The MCQ2 suppressor is primarily made for signature reduction, and a signature reduction is primarily in relation to flash signature. So the first thing they wanted to do was make sure that we had a really badass flash signature reduction. The MCQ2 does a very good job of that. Beyond that, it is also a high flow can. There's not that much back pressure compared to a traditional design. Now, the sound signature is good. You're typically between 142 to about 149 decibels, depending on your proximity and your ear placement next to the suppressor. This is not a quiet suppressor, but one thing that we can say is it is pleasant as a shooter to shoot it. And in fact, even on an 11.5 KS3, it's very pleasant to shoot. So understand that each suppressor is going to have a job. With the MCQ2 that we have on the KS1, KS3, we're primarily looking for a warfighting suppressor that's going to reduce that flash so you're not getting immediately smoked when you're firing at night, and also for a little bit of that sound reduction so when all your mates are online, you're shooting at whoever, I don't know, Chinese, can we say that? That you're still going to be able to perform those battlefield communications, going to cut down a lot of that chaotic noise. It's also going to make it tougher for an enemy to identify precisely where those shots are coming from. Now, even with a louder can like this, it's going to do a very good job of that. So it was pretty pleasant to listen to overall.
It's camera guy approved.
The camera guy approved it. Probably, unfortunately, Sawyer always has to take the blast from a lot of the guns, and he was quite impressed with the MCQ2. We might even have like a little section for him to give like a thumbs up or a thumbs down from now on. So we'll have his little face pop in, little chubby face. I'm just kidding. You're looking really good since working out top.
That's the baby face. When I'm 40, I'm looking 20. I'm telling you.
We'll see, man. When you're my age, we'll see what you're looking like, or if your voice turns into RFK or not. Suppressor, very good. Now, very interestingly, on the MCQ suppressors, or the newer Knight suppressors in general, they use ball bearings as a part of their lockup mechanism. It's very interesting. The reason for that is that these are ceramic ball bearings that do a very good job of resisting heat and temperature fluctuations. So overall, you have a very good can that doesn't get carbon locked too hard. So I guess we can prove that by trying to pull this guy off. So go ahead and thread that collar forward, give it a few taps, and we'll see how hard that guy is to pull off. Oh my God, everything gets carbon locked. It's a lie. You never had a can not get carbon locked?
I've had good luck with ASR.
Yeah, I've had those lock up so hard on me.
I've never had an ASR lockup. But then again, after as many rounds you put through that.
Well, we shoot a lot. Shooting in the cold, we still got it off. Every can is going to be a little bit tough to get off, but as you can see, tiny little can right there. Very easy to tell which way to lock, and why do they have those directions on there? Well, have you met any Army guys before? I mean, holy crap. I mean, the British military is a little bit better, but when I worked with the unit from Scotland, could not understand a damn thing you guys were saying. To be clear, that's not English. That is not English. Moving back from there, let's talk about the muzzle device. Here's your typical KAC 3-prong flash hider. They do very well, but in general, we're not too as concerned about the performance, other than to say that it performs just like a 3-prong should, which is very good flash suppression. These are primarily going to be used with the MCQ2 on there. So from there, let's step back to one of the most important parts and probably one of the most revolutionary parts of the KS1 and the KS3, and that is going to be the barrel tech that is utilized. Now, getting to the barrel, obviously this is going to be the biggest change we have from the KS3 to the KS1. The KS1 is a heavier profile barrel that is dimpled. There's a lot of confusion about the dimpling on barrels. We have talked to unnamed engineers from multiple different entities. And the biggest thing about dimpling that's probably misunderstood is it's not significant enough to cause much of a change in heat transfer or in cooling of the barrel. In fact, the dimpling on the KS1 was primarily done for weight savings, and it does save a lot of weight. So understand that's the primary goal behind the dimpling on the KS1, was to meet project requirements. And the KS1 is a very light rifle. It weighs in at about 6.88 pounds, obviously more loaded up with everything, but that is a very light and handy rifle, and even less on the KS3 because, well, shorter barrel, shorter gun. So when we're talking about the barrels, we're talking about the newest tech. If you're not familiar, barrel tech has come a long way. This is probably going to be one of the big focal points for firearms in the very near future, due to the fact that smelting, that purity of metals and heat treatment have gotten so precise and so good that now we're able to really stretch what a barrel can do. So we're about to talk about it. Aubert and Duval. This is a French company that is making arguably the best combat barrels in the world currently. In fact, I had the opportunity to speak with many of these engineers at several different events and several different venues. And I'm not a big fan of egotism at all. I very much so eschew that particular mindset. That being said, if your product is good, if your knowledge is good, having that that good kind of spirit of core behind your company is good. And one thing their engineer said to me was that the metal used that was typically used within American barrels is quite poor, and they were very, very sure of that. And indeed, the Aubert and Duval barrels from the French company are incredible. This is not hearsay. This is not unsubstantiated information. In fact, you can go to Aubert Duval and you can look up the studies themselves, and you can look up further studies from other agencies and other companies that have also looked upon them. Their barrel steel, specifically their Armament technology, is quite incredible. And indeed, many of the combat rifles that you're seeing on the market today are using these barrels. I'm not going to call out every company using them, but when we think of 416s, the real 416s, they are using this barrel material. KS1s are using this barrel material, and many other companies are moving over to this barrel material because it's so good. How good is it? Well, if we take a look at the studies conducted, they took an M240 and they put it up against their barrel, typical military barrel, and a couple other barrels, and they tested throat erosion, muzzle erosion. And essentially, you're looking at how much wear is it seen. So they would fire about 120 rounds, let it cool for a little bit, and they'd continue the firing process. After about 20K rounds, most of the barrels were unable. There was about 30 to 40% of the projectiles are typically yawing more than 15 degrees, which is meaning that the barrel is shot out. Aubert and Duval barrels, we can look at this, the graphs right here, do not exhibit that type of wear. In fact, they do not exhibit the fire cracking that is typical of machine gun barrels. Quite frankly, the material is incredible. The science is incredible. The QC is incredible. And the amount of impurities that you see within this barrel steel, very, very low. We're at a very incredible point in firearm technology. What this leads to is a massive increase in barrel life over what you typically see from older combat barrels. We all know the M4 with the 4150 CB, very good, but about 20K, that barrel's gone. That's not the case anymore. These barrels are very well known to be in excess of 50K rounds, and that's not an exaggeration. That is the fact of what we're seeing right now. Now, in addition to the barrels, you're gonna see that this is a typical theme that you're seeing with the KS1, or more notably the SR15, which is that there aren't any huge, massive leaps that you're seeing in the technology, but rather you have these small friction points in the AR-15 design that are solved. That way, we can increase the durability and the service life of these weapons. So, barrel, incredible. More importantly, you saw that we shot out to 550, the 11.5 barrel. KS1 can easily push 700, 800, no problem. About to the edge of what the 5.56 is capable of before that round goes transonic, at which point the round is unstable. Incredible barrel seal. Now, moving from there, we're going to talk about the gas system for a moment. This is another sticking point with the typical AR-15 design that was, in many ways, ameliorated or solved, you could say, with the SR-15, SR-16 design, which carries over, of course, to the KS-1, being a direct descendant of those. In your typical AR-15 design, you have a bent gas tube. Not really that big of a deal, but those bends in the gas tube do offer points where the heated gases, as the weapon is cycling, are going to increase that heat at those joints and at those bends. By having a straight gas tube, we eliminate those friction points that could possibly be failure points on the AR-15. Now, I'm not saying that this is a common failure point on the AR-15. Have I seen a gas tube rupture? Yes. Is it very common? I would say fairly uncommon. That being said, the SR-15 is all about increasing or decreasing the chance of those failures on the system to be the most capable combat rifle it can. Now, in addition to that, we have a very sealed gas system. By means of a castle nut, they're able to lock that gas system in to prevent any type of bleed off. Because of that, you don't have a lot of the bleed off that you see through gas blocks from typical AR-15 designs. This leads to a very consistently gassed rifle. This is important because of the consistent gassing. You don't have to overgas the rifle as much. Because of this, parts longevity, heat, etc. are decreased. The weapon's going to last longer. Again, these are small incremental changes and improvements of the AR-15, but in my opinion, are very good improvements and again make this a very capable combat rifle, which is what you're going to see us coming back to time and time again. Now, from there, we're going to move to the URX6 rail. So compared to your typical URX4s that you mostly saw before, the URX6 is a little bit simplified, or perhaps you might say complicated, in terms of its rail design. Now, compared to the URX4, a lot of people consider it a very elegant design. The URX6 is easier to install, easier to swap out, but more importantly, what makes the URX so good is its rigidity. Compared to a lot of the M-LOK rails that you've seen out there, the rails on the URX6 are quite rigid, which leads to a good ability of the rail to retain that zero on any of your laser aiming modules, which is always important. Now, from there, we're going to talk about the M-LOK slots. So obviously we have M-LOK slots at almost every location with Picatinny on the top. More importantly, and perhaps what we'll kind of talk to most, is the fact that much like many other companies, they have a key design, which is the rail has an anti-rotation massive tab that fits into the upper receiver. These rails are not specifically designed to work with other upper receivers. Because of that, you have a very stable design. To be clear, this is nothing new. They're not the first, they're not the last to do it. 416s, Super Duties, URGIs all do this to some extent, as well as many other companies. It's a elegant and simple solution to the problem of rail rotation on an AR-15 type design. Now, with all that being said, the barrel nut that's used on the KS1s is incredible, leads to better accuracy. There's a lot to be said about barrel nuts on AR-15 like design, and they do a very good job of making sure that that's not impacting the overall combat effectiveness of the rifle. Moving back from there, we're going to talk about some very important stuff. The next thing that we need to talk about is going to be the bolt. The bolt design on the SR-15, SR-16 KS-1 is probably one of the greatest improvements that you see to the AR-15 design. And it's one of the reasons why they're not cross-compatible with your typical AR-15, because they do require the Knight's Armament barrel extension to work properly. When it comes to the bolt design, essentially what we're doing is relieving any of those stress points that can lead to early bolt failure. The AR-15 is a very robust design. We've talked about it with the Super Duty and the URGI. It's a very good design. All that we're doing here is decreasing the probability of parts breakage during those critical mission operations. So the first thing that we need to talk about is going to be the bolt lugs specifically. The bolt lugs on the KAC bolts, specifically the E3.2 bolt, are radiused. Because of the lack of angle right there, there's a far less likelihood of those bolt lugs breaking. Have I broken bolt lugs? 100% on every great brand you can think of, from Daniel Defense to URGIs to Colt to ACRO to PCM, all of them. I break bolts all the time because I fire a lot. Now, have I broken SR-15 bolts? 100% yes. But I've had less SR-15 bolts break compared to my typical AR-15 bolts. You shoot long enough, you're going to see. Isn't that right, Matt? You see bolts break? Bolt lugs? Have you not?
Never.
Get the fuck out.
I
Did
don't
you see a
shoot as
bolt?
much as you.
I broke one.
Okay, there you have it. Get out of here, Matt. Point is, you're going to break bolts if you shoot enough. Or if you're Matt and you're just magical, you're not going to break them. He's just a cheap bastard. I don't know what to say. So, the first thing is going to be that radius bullhead. Now, the other thing is going to be the ejectors. Now, there's two things that people often get confused about: ejectors and extractors. By the way, I should note, I was originally going to do a Captain Price cosplay this entire time, but my voice is shot. I'll give it one shot right now. Oh, it's soap, but never mind. Okay, we're not going to try that. So, on the ejectors, we have two ejectors on the bolt face. There's a lot of questions about whether or not this is necessary. In my opinion, positive ejection of the round is important. Well, more specifically, the spent round. So, it was specifically designed for these shorter barrels to ensure, especially when they're suppressed, that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of force to ensure that it can very positively extract that. Now, in addition to that, you also have a larger bolt face. In addition to that, you have a very powerful extractor. Oftentimes, the extractor on the KAC has been called the whale tail because of the shape, and you'll see that right now as we take a look at it. But it has a dual extractor springs on that extractor. And in addition to that, you have the typical O-ring. This provides constant tension and ensures that that extractor is going to very securely clamp onto that brass. That's very good. However, if you're using refired, remanufactured ammunition, you might run into some problems. Of any rifle I've ever had, I have had SR-15s, SR-16s rip extractor rims off of once fired brass. So I would definitely recommend sticking with your NATO Death Squad ammo when it comes to your KS1s, KS3s. And that definitely goes into how they were designed and gassed, which was they were designed and gassed specifically for hotter ammo. Another point of breakage on the AR-15 bolt is going to be where the cam pin is. You have a thin webbing of metal because of the size of that cam pin. Now, there have been multiple companies that come up with different ways to solve this. In terms of Knight's Armament, they did this by reducing the size of the cam pin, which allows for a thicker webbing. I've personally never seen a Knight's Armament bolt break at the webbing, just due to the cam pin size, but I have seen typical AR-15 bolts break at that webbing. I see you nodding back there, so I know that's happened to you. Now, again, these aren't huge improvements. These are all small to ensure that the weapon functions no matter what. Now, before we go any further, let's go and let's talk about the lower. The lower is a little bit simpler. All they've done with the lower compared to your typical SR-15, SR-16 is make sure that this thing is fully ambidextrous. You think about your left-handers out there. I'm left-handed, but I shoot right. My camera guy is too retarded to shoot right, so he shoots left, and he definitely loves this. So we, of course, have the bolt open feature on the left-hand side, and I do have to say, being able to actuate that from my fire control hand is really nice. Now, in addition to that, we have bolt release right here. So if you're loading your gun up, boom, we are loaded. That is quick. You could, of course, load your gun just with the typical way where you insert and hit that bolt release. But I do like having the controls right here. And for me, particularly compared to some ambi lowers that I've used, I find that this one is just very easy. And compared to the L85A2, I didn't lose where the bolt release was. I know you guys are still making fun of me for that. Don't worry about it. But very easy to actuate the controls on this. And of course, we have magazine releases on the right-hand side too for my left-handed shooters. Now, our safeties are, of course, ambi. Now, why this matters is because a lot of times when you're shooting far, people will go same side with their thumb. The reason for that is decreasing the amount of hand input that you have into the gun, especially for those long shots. And if you can see here on the safety on the KS1, KS3, it is scalloped at the bottom there. Why this matters is because when I switch this gun to fire, you're going to see that that safety, especially on that side, has a tendency to want to hit right above my firing finger right there. And a lot of times it can really kind of, if you don't have a scalped one, it can really begin to get in the way. So having that scalped safety is a good design. Again, small things make the difference, make it a little bit easier for the shooter. Now, moving back from there, we have a ambidextrous charging handle. It can be used from either side. We have our typical Knight's Armament iron sights on there. If you know, they're worth like $1,000. I'm just kidding, they're worth like 400, but they're definitely worth it. They're very well made. Moving back to our buffer system. So first off, we do have a QD mount right here. There has been some questions about what buttstock's going to be used. I've seen anywhere from the CTR. It's CTR, right, for Magpul?
Well, it's A-shaped, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't sure. I grew up Mormon, so I wasn't sure if I was saying choose the right or not. But anyhow, right here we do have the smaller micro Magpul stock, which also does very well. Very easy to adjust, no problems there. Now, the buffer spring and buffer on the KS1, KS3 are specifically for the KS1, KS3. You could, of course, use different buffers, but there's no point to. The gas systems on the Knight's rifles are different from what you see on your typical AR-15 designs. It doesn't fall into mid-length or rifle length or carbine length. They have their own lengths that are designed to work precisely with the barrel lengths that they have. So when it comes to the gas systems and stuff on the KS1, KS3, which one's best? You know, which buffer weight do I use? The Knight's buffer weight. Don't mess with it. It's good. They probably know more than you. If you think you know more than them, well, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. I have to tell you, it's just, you don't know enough to know you don't know enough. The best way to tell you that. Now, moving back from there, we do have A2 grip. A lot of people are going to be mad about the A2 grip. I would have preferred an A1 grip, if anything, because I don't like the little finger groove there. That being said, this is easily changeable. It is a little odd at this point to have such a, kind of steep angle on a gun. Given modern shooting techniques, you typically want a more steep angle, but we have what we have. Not a big deal, can be easily swapped out. Now, a couple notes that we do want to make here compared to your contract KS1 optics and coatings. So first things first, the KS1 rifles are first anodized black, and then they are Cerakoted. Or in the case of the British rifles, they have a type of IR thermal coating that we can't specifically talk about because we don't want to give too much information to enemies or people who are trying to glean information. Suffice to say, the reason for these are, of course, anti-IR and anti-thermal properties. In addition to that, you do see some of the KS1s now coming with a thermal shield over the suppressor. I couldn't tell you the name of the company off the top of my head, but we'll of course mention our favorites, which are ModTac, which are very well made. The reason for this is thermal regulation to ensure that when you're being spotted by the ACRO, aka thermal optic, your suppressor doesn't give you away immediately. Now, I can't speak to the coating and its durability because that coating is specific to the United Kingdom military. But when we go to the optic right here, which is probably one of the coolest things about the KS1. When the rifle was adopted, it was adopted as a package. So right here, we have the Vortex AMG 1-10. It is a compact 1-10 optic. It is the holy grail of optics, very well made. It's in a reptilian mount, great company. And on the top, we have an Aimpoint ACRO. When you talk about a very capable setup, right out the gate, this is a very capable, very simple, but good setup. Everything about this screams utilitarian and ready for war. Very happy with the choices they made. Now, compared to the contract optic being used by the United Kingdom military, there are some differences. Our optic right here, although the correct color, was anodized tan and then Cerakoted. This is in stark comparison to the United Kingdom optics, which are anodized black, then Cerakoted tan. So you'll see that the numbers on the ring, different locations, will not have that tan ano beneath it. They'll have that black ano beneath it. Now, we don't have the correct coatings on here because, again, those near IR coatings are not seen outside of military circles. The Cerakote that we see, especially in the Aimpoint, is quite soft and seems to scratch off pretty easily. I don't see that with the Vortex and the reptilian mounts. It just seems to be the Aimpoint that's kind of lacking a little bit on its coating as a whole. So we put this all together. We have a very capable rifle. In every way, they have made a very good choice. I hope that the soldiers within the United Kingdom and operators who are using these are going to be happy with them, because I think you have a very good rifle in your hands. This is a rifle that I'd absolutely trust my life to. This is a combat ready gun. In every way, everything that they've chosen is a great choice. No problems at all with it. This is probably among the better choices that I've seen recently from different militaries. And more importantly, as an American, I'm happy to see that Florida Man is once again getting recognition for what they should be, which is making crazy shit. KS1, KS3 are definitely there as being exceptional rifles in every single way. One thing we could say, guys, is how soft shooting this is. They have gassed it so well. This is an incredible design. If you can get your hands on a KS1, a KS3, or even an SR16, you're going to be very happy. The whole package together is it. This is a rifle you should trust your life to. Unfortunately, the price reflects that. It is an expensive rifle, but if you got the cash for it, do it. Otherwise, you'll be happy with just a PCM and an arrow lower, which is going to do most of it, or buy a cheap bastard from Boise Black Rifle. Point is, guys, hopefully you guys have really enjoyed this. We really delved into it on this rifle. The KS3 is such a cool design, guys. Get your hands on them, try them out. We have tons more coming. Maybe with RFK voice, maybe be better. We'll find out. Guys, stay tuned. Of course, don't forget the Patreon, because it's all the worst stuff you can think of. Just kidding. It's all the fun. We answer questions. We show you behind the scenes. Hope you guys are loving it. Final thing for you guys could be a little bit of dad advice. Dad advice for today. Have that fun day with your kids at least once a week. They're going to grow up way too fast, and before you know, your daughter's going to be 17 and you're not going to be cool enough. Just kidding. You're always going to be cool because you're always going to be doing good things with your kids. The point is, have those dad fun days with your kids. They're going to grow up too fast and you don't want to miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We got tons more coming for you. Stay tuned.
Different coating on the optic, not even the same.
Not
Get
even
out
the
of here,
not even the
trash.
same trash.
Not even the same.